Texas Governor Greg Abbott will deploy National Guard troops to protests against the Trump administration's crackdown on immigration. Abbott says the troops are being deployed to help law enforcement maintain order. It comes as the Trump administration's aggressive immigration enforcement raids across the country have led to intense pushback from activists and Democratic politicians. Joining us to discuss, Jesse Burns, senior editor here at The Hill. So, Jesse, it strikes me that there are two stories being told here. One is that these protests have a violent element and National Guard troops are needed to prevent them from getting out of control. The other is that the violence was relatively isolated and Republican politicians like President Trump and Governor Abbott are purposely inflaming tensions because they think it benefits them politically. What's your take?
Well, Joe, you've outlined essentially some of the arguments at play here, and we've seen this kind of back and forth between the Trump administration and California officials for days now over the deployment of National Guard as well as hundreds of Marines to California. Now, they are not on the front lines dealing with these protesters and these demonstrators who a number of them have, of course, become violent, and the police in LA have largely been the ones taking the lead on these arrests. But just the image of sending and invoking the military in this area has certainly raised tensions. And you are seeing this battle not just over the issue of which law enforcement to use, but also really a battle over, states versus the federal government. And Trump has very explicitly stated that he believes that federal law is supreme and that when it comes to immigration, illegal immigration, he thinks that it is appropriate to deploy troops to domestically if it means repelling immigrants, if it means. Now, we'll see exactly where the line is, if there is more use of the military when it comes to the actual raids that are happening. We haven't seen that quite yet, but certainly concerns among Gavin Newsom, governor of California, and others that is the next step. And I think that would also, provoke some pushback from Republicans in Congress. What Republicans do agree on, though, is that they should be the party of law and order, and what they're seeing playing out in some of these areas in California, it goes against that.
Yeah, we're watching these images on the screen of chaos in Los Angeles. California is where this all started. Trump federalized National Guard troops there against the wishes of Governor Gavin Newsom. Governor Abbott, though, is a Republican. He's an ally of President Trump. I know that there were some arrests at the state capitol in Austin on Monday, but is there any indication that things were getting out of control in Texas and that we were expecting to see scenes like we did in California?
There weren't, at least publicly. Now, there are some demonstrations planned for today as well as this weekend in different parts of Texas, and we've seen reportedly the National Guard be deployed to Austin, San Antonio, the governor confirming that he has deployed them to other parts of Texas as well. And his pushback is, don't mess with Texas law enforcement. They're very much taking a kind of an offensive posture on this, hoping that anyone who might try to be disruptive or violent would stay home. But at the same time, you are seeing this kind of contrast with California, and it does matter the fact that you have a Republican governor who is very much an ally of the White House, who is kind of promoting the exact tact that the White House has taken, but of course holding control over his own National Guard in the state versus California, where Trump has taken control.
What's your view on the politics of this? Stephen Miller, top White House immigration hawk, posted on X this morning, America voted for mass deportations. Violent insurrectionists and the politicians who enable them are trying to overthrow the results of the election. Did Americans vote for the type of harsh immigration crackdown we're seeing from the Trump administration?
Well, Trump has been very explicit for both his first presidential campaign as well as the 2024 campaign that he wants to take a hard line on illegal immigration. Now, that was certainly something in polling that we saw really resonated. We've seen even in his first few months in office, even though many Republicans even have been critical of his moves on tariffs, people across the spectrum have, among Republicans at least, have really supported his moves on illegal immigration. And we've seen some even support among people in the middle or the center left on the topic of trying to crack down on illegal immigration, trying to secure the border. Now, what we're seeing playing out in LA is certainly much different from just taking a hard line on immigration. We're seeing, troops being deployed to American cities. We're seeing the federal government take control of the National Guard, something that hasn't happened since the 1960s. And so we're really in extraordinary times here. And so the polling, I think we're seeing some pushback in some polling. There was one Economist YouGov poll out yesterday showing that 47% of Americans disagreed with Trump in his moves in California. So I think you are seeing some pushback to the degree to which he is taking this crackdown.
It seems like there was some mixed messaging from President Trump back during the campaign. On one hand, he was promising mass deportations. On the other, it seemed like his focus was going to be on criminal elements, especially violent criminal undocumented immigrants. But with this more broad-based approach, I wonder if you think that ends up running a little bit of a risk for the president.
It could, and there are certainly Republicans in Congress right now who are raising the question of why, you're going after not just violent criminals, you're going after anyone who has stayed past their status or has had no status to stay in the United States. Certainly this kind of marching order mentality when it comes to these ratcheted up arrests on the part of the administration. But to the point of the midterms, we saw last year an interesting kind of nuance to that, even though it was widely viewed that Trump's rhetoric on illegal immigration and migrants crossing the southern border would actually be an impediment when it came to try to win over Latino voters. What we actually saw in polling was that even among Latinos, they agreed that people should try to enter the country through the proper channels. And so there was a degree of support even among that constituency for having law and order and for closing and making sure that people who come to the country do so legally. But again, what we're seeing playing out in LA right now, or what we've seen the last several days, is certainly an escalation of those hardline tactics that he campaigned on.
Yeah, to me, that was one of the most interesting developments of the last election, was that swing of immigrant voters to the Republican Party. Do you think Trump's crackdown runs the risk of killing the momentum Republicans have built with immigrant voters, especially Hispanics that were key to his 2024 election victory?
Well, there's always the risk of going too far. I think the litmus test here, or the key thing to watch, is going to be, what do Trump's Republican allies say about his moves? And so far, there's basically been tacit endorsement of what he has done. But certainly, you have House members across the country, but particularly in swing districts who, in parts of California and elsewhere, they want the support of Latino community. They want the support of other minority demographics in their districts. And when they see concerns, they see real fear over what Trump is doing, some of the chaos and uncertainty that his moves can provoke, that can really come back to hurt Republicans in the midterm. So, Republicans right now have a chance to try to hold on to the House. Democrats are being very aggressive to try to win it in 2 years. And I think it'll be interesting to see how some of these vulnerable Republicans in the House in particular respond to what President Trump is doing.
Governor Gavin Newsom addressed the nation last night, framing this fight with the Trump administration as part of a larger struggle to save democracy. This seems like a pretty big moment for Newsom. He's widely believed to be interested in running for president in 2028.
That's right. And we saw prior to this past week, Governor Newsom was taking a little bit more of a tact to the center, at least, with the optics of who he was trying to reach out to, having this podcast, speaking with people like Steve Bannon, trying to engage with a conversation more in the middle. Not that he is going to change who he is or what he stands for, but trying to essentially say that even though he hails from a coastal, liberal enclave, that doesn't mean that he can't be president for the whole country, or at least that's the kind of subtext of some of these moves. But what we've seen the past few days is him really dig in his heels against the Trump administration and really adopt this resistor mentality when it comes to President Trump. And we'll see how that shakes out. At the end of the day, he's going to be judged based on his record and based on what he has done in California. And so he is in this days-long battle to protect his public image in California, really, and to resist what Trump is trying to do. And so certainly, he's going to try to battle in court, try to take back control of the National Guard. but certainly trying to project an image of law and order and a message of law and order is certainly something to kind of watch from the governor.
Definitely a very dynamic situation there on the ground. We'll continue to follow the developments, but for now we will leave it at that. Jesse Burns, thanks so much.
Thanks, Drew.